In this video, I'm going to show you how to reverse a car into a parking space in a car park and how to parallel park on the road using the reversing camera's guidelines. I'm going to do it in two cars. One has rigid guidelines that don't move as you steer, and the other has bendy guidelines that bend as you turn the wheel to show you where you're going to go. Firstly, I'm going to show you how to reverse a car into a parking space with rigid guidelines on the camera. So I want to get as close to the space as I can without going into it, and I'll stop outside the space so it's in line with the door. If the space is on the passenger side, line it up with the passenger door. If the space is on the driver's side, line it up with the driver's door. It's the same for reversing in both sides. You don't have to change anything, just go next to the space you want before you reverse into it. Now I need to steer all the way away from the space over here to get my back facing the space. So turn all the way away, make sure it's safe, and I'm going to move forwards around about 45 degrees, should do it, and then stop. Now I'll straighten the wheel to come back in a straight line and pop it in reverse. Now we can see the reversing camera. Here are the guidelines. This is the target space. It should be roughly around here if you've got about 45 degrees. And I'm not looking here at this part of the line. I'm looking here at this part of the guidelines. I need to get this part of this guideline on that white line and this part of this guideline on this white line here. And I'll steer that way to make this line go that way, and this way to make this line go this way. It literally is the same way you want to go. Steer where you want to go. It's not back to front when you're looking backwards. It's only back to front if you're looking forwards and you steer when you're going backwards. But if you look backwards and steer when you're going backwards, the steering's the same way and the camera is looking backwards. So I'm going to look around and make sure it's safe, no one coming. I'm going to come back now and try and get this part of the line on this white line, as this one's closest. This one's so far away it's going to be a while. So I'm going to start steering that way because it looks like it's going to miss it otherwise. Yeah, going to miss it. So I'm fully turned now, trying to get this line, this guideline, this yellow one on the white one. Is it going that way? Have another look around and make sure it's safe. It's heading that way gradually. Aha, right, now you can see this line is in the space. But the guidelines are smaller than the space itself, which is actually quite common. If that's the case, don't put the guidelines on the white lines, but try and keep the gap between the guidelines and the white lines even. So at the moment, it looks like the gap here is bigger than the gap here. Don't look up here, look down at the beginning of the lines. So I want to go closer to this line. So I'm going to take some steering off because at the moment I'm fully steered that way. So I'm going to steer more this way to go closer to this line. And you'll see I'll get closer. Aha, now they're even. Now I'm just going to use the steering to try and keep these even. And if I keep it even, I should be straight in the space before I get to the end. So at the moment, if I go back, you see it's getting smaller here. So I'm going to steer towards this one. Try and keep them even. Yeah, I'm fully turned now. Aha, now this one's getting smaller and that one's getting bigger. I'll take some steering off to try and keep them even. That's about even. And now I'm almost in the space and I'm almost straight. So at the moment, I'll just look at the whole of the line and try and keep the gap between the guideline and the white line as even as possible. And I'll stop when the red line gets to the grass. So I'm turning a little bit this way at the moment, but I don't think I need to, so I'm going to straighten the wheel. In fact, I'm a bit closer to this, aren't I? A bit further on this side. So I'll go a little bit this way, like so, and then turn that way now to straighten the car. And you can see it's about even. And when the red line gets to the grass, I'll stop. The key is use this part of the guidelines, not this part. I'll get out and have a look. Not too bad. Gap on the left, gap on the right, very even. And the front is in and the back has a little bit of space, so I could come back a little bit more. It's important not to solely focus on the camera when reversing because the camera doesn't show you what's to the sides, in front, or your blind spots, and there could be a hazard approaching. So look round regularly, including your blind spot checks. Now I'm going to reverse into a space on the right to show you that it's the same as doing it on the left, but also I'm going to show you how to tell if you're wonky. I've turned the car around the park in a space on the right because there's loads of leaves in the spaces on the left, so I thought that might be confusing. So again, I'll just get really close to the space I want, as close as I can, stop outside of the space I want, steer all the way away from the space, make sure no one's coming, swing the nose out so that the space is behind me. When I'm around 45 degrees, it should be about right. Straighten the wheel, pop it in reverse, and now we have the camera. There's the guidelines. This is the space I want. So looking around, trying to get these lines where I want them to be, just like I did when I was reversing in a space on the left. And you see this line's getting close now, so now try and keep it on this white line by steering that way before it goes too far this way. I might have done it a bit late. Oh no, I've done it okay, it's staying there. But remember, these guidelines are a bit smaller than the space, so I can actually come off that line. So I'm going to steer that way a little bit to come away from that line, because I'm going a bit too much on this side. There we go. But now I'm going to deliberately be wonky. If though you keep this part of the guidelines even from the white lines all the way back, it will naturally straighten itself. So you won't actually have to worry about being wonky. You'll be almost completely straight by the end, but you tell if you're wonky by looking far. This is the only time you really want to look up here, and you can see this white line is like that, and this guideline is like this. It's not straight, is it? It's not parallel to each other. You can see it more here, it's more obvious. They're completely crossing each other. So if I keep the gap between the guidelines and the white lines even, you'll see that it naturally straightens the car. I'm trying to keep this even. I'm steering that way because this was getting a bit bigger. Now this is getting smaller. I'm going to steer this way a bit. You see it naturally straightens, but you can tell if you're straight by looking far. If I straighten up now though, you can see I am a bit wonky. This line looks parallel, but this one doesn't. And you want both of them to look parallel to the white lines to be straight. So as the top line here is closer to this white line, this top guideline, I'm going to steer that way to try and open up this gap a little bit, this gap between the guideline and the white line. So I'm steering that way. That will open it up a bit, closes this one, but at least they're even. And I'd say now I'm fairly straight. The only problem is I'm closer to this white line than this white line. Okay, I'll steer that way and try and fix that whilst I've got a bit of time. Now I'm steering this way to straighten up. A little bit close to this white line this time. Haven't done as good of a job, but you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go so the red line is just on the grass a bit, because last time I wasn't quite far enough back. These bays are quite short, so I have to get really close to this grass to get the front in. Let's take a look. Not too bad. So on the camera, I was a little bit closer to one side, and you can see that here. I think this gap is a bit bigger than that gap. Only just though. Close enough, and you can see now my front is well in the line and my back is closer to the grass. During the driving test in Great Britain, you can use parking cameras and you can use parking sensors, but you can't use automatic steering systems, the sort where you do the pedals and the computer steers you into your space. Also, if you only look at the screen, you will likely fail. You need to maintain good all-round observations. Your observations need to be good enough that you would notice anything coming from any direction before you would need to brake for it. I'm now going to attempt to reverse into a parking space from a 90-degree angle. I don't recommend doing it this way. It's not that obvious what you're trying to do to people around you. Even if you use your indicator, some people might not get it. You have to drive past the space you want before you reverse into it, and the car behind might want that space and drive forwards into it before you have a chance to get in there yourself. Also, it's a lot more challenging, and it varies so much from car to car. It's a bit more of a guess. It depends on the turning circle of the car, the length of the car, how far you are from the bays when you start. You've got to get everything right, and you've got to learn each individual car. On this occasion though, I'm going to start about 1 to 2 meters from the bays, about this far, and I'm going to give it my best guess. So I'm going to put it in reverse, and I am going to use this line here, and I'm going to line it up with the beginning of the bay I want. So I'd say actually I can get this bay here. The line is nearly in line. I need to come back a little bit more. So I'll look round, come back, so they're in line with each other. I'd say they're about in line now, and I'm going to steer that way into the space. If you are going to do the 90-degree angle, I recommend starting steering when your furthest guideline is near the space you want. That should get you somewhere close, but it is going to vary from car to car, and you will need to make adjustments. So I'll look round now, and I'm going to steer fully, or almost fully, that way into this space. I think That's probably enough. Done about 1 turn of the wheel. I don't want to cut into this space too much in case there was a car there. Let's pretend there's cars in both these spaces next to the space I want. So the yellow line looks like it's going to cut over the space. I'm going to steer that way a little bit now so that I come back in a straight line and get away from this space. There we go. Now I'll steer fully that way and see if I can get in that space now. So it's fully that way. Look round, no one's coming, and there we go. We've got this part of the line near the white line again. We're looking good at the moment, although it looks like we might be getting close to the car in this space. We're not close to it until the red line gets there, so we're okay at the moment. The gap between this guideline and the white line is getting big, so I'm fully turned that way, trying to bring it round. Looks like I'm going to make it into my space because the red line is not going into this space, so I am in. Another look round to make sure it's safe. Oh good, I'm just about in now. Still fully turned that way. The gap here is hopefully going to start getting smaller soon because I am further from this side. There we go. Now they're evening up, so I'm going to start steering this way to take the steering off before I go too far in that direction. So I'm steering towards this side. The gap here is a bit smaller, so I'm going to steer more this side. That's it. Now they're even. I'm going to try and keep them even. And now I'm near the end. I'll look up here and just try and straighten it because it's not quite straight yet and this gap's a bit bigger. So I'm going to steer that way. That should straighten me and help improve the gap on either side. And that's straight now. So I'm straightening the wheel and coming back until the red line is near the grass. I've been looking round regularly as well to make sure it's safe. There. And this is the result. That's the gap on that side. And this side, fairly even. I don't recommend the 90-degree reverse, but sometimes it is your only option. Now for parallel parking. The white car in front, that's the car I'm going to pull up alongside and reverse behind. Firstly, when I pull up alongside, I don't want to be too close. This is their car, this is mine. If I start too close, when I pull the back in, when it comes to swinging the nose in, I'm likely to hit the car. But neither do I want to be too far because then I need a bigger space. I want to be about 1/2 meter to 1 meter. I want to feel like if someone was in that car, they could open the door and get out, but not too easily. I don't want to be too far forwards either, because if I am too far forwards, when I turn, I'm going to hit the car. But neither do I want to be too far back, because then I need a big space. I want the back of my car to be in line with the back of their car. And as their car is a bit bigger than this one, what I'll do is I'll line my wing mirror up with their wing mirror and come back a little bit further just to play it safe, because it is better to start too far back than too far forwards. Okay, no one coming, so let's pull up alongside this car. I want to be about 1/2 meter to 1 meter, enough room for someone to open the door about halfway and get out. And I want my wing mirror to be in line with theirs to begin with, something like this. Now I'm going to come back a little bit just to play it safe, because it's better to start a bit too far back than a bit too far forwards, something like that. Now I'm going to steer all the way that way towards the curb. You always steer in the direction you want to go when reversing, so all the way over there, because that's where I'm going. I don't like saying left or right when reversing because that usually just confuses my pupils. So I say over there and point, or over there and point. So no one coming. I want to add some angle now. No more than 45 degrees. If you add more than 45 degrees, you're likely to get stuck and your nose will want to hit the car in front as you try to swing it in. So I'm going to play it safe and give about that much angle. Less angle will mean you need a slightly bigger space, but this is less than 45. So now I'm going to straighten the wheel and come back at this angle in a straight line. So no one coming, and I'm going to get this part of the line to touch the curb. In this car, I find if the line is touching the curb, and in most cars that is the case as well, then you're close enough. Sometimes you want the line to be on the curb, or sometimes on the road next to it. This one likes to be just touching it, maybe even on the curb a little bit sometimes. Depends how much angle I've got. The more angle I have, the earlier I should really stop. So there we go, just touching the curb now. Now I'm going to steer all the way away from the curb, that way, to take the angle off. So steering all the way away, looking round, looks safe. And now what should happen is this yellow line should be next to the curb, just touching the curb nice and straight by the time I've finished. So coming back, it's straightening. nearly straight. So this yellow line is nearly straight with the curb now. The camera has seen a car coming and told me, which is what that beeping was. So look round again, no one's coming, go back, and nearly there. Come on, a little bit more. I would say, yeah, that looks straight there. So the line is straight with the curb, sort of halfway up it. Straighten the wheel now, and let's get out and have a look and see what it looks like. So there's a bit of a gap between me and the car in front, but on this occasion, there's no need for me to get into a tight space. If I wanted to, I could add a bit more angle. And the gap between the wheels and the curb, nice and small and quite straight also. I would like to thank Underwood's Vauxhall in Colchester for lending me this Vauxhall Corsa. They're allowing me to use it so that I can show you how to reverse a car with a camera that has bendy guidelines. When I turn the wheel, the guidelines bend to show me where I'm going. They're not sponsoring the channel, they've just been kind enough to lend me the car so that I can make the video. Check them out if you're looking for a new or used car. They specialise in Skoda, Mazda, Vauxhall and Kia. So I'm going to stop next to the space I want, which is this space here, really close to it. So there's space to my right. Doing it with bendy lines is more or less the same as doing it with rigid lines, except the lines bend to help you know where you're about to go, but you don't really need it too much. It does help a little bit. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to pull the car out now, so the back is facing the space. About there, straighten the wheel, pop it in reverse, and now you can see this is the space I want, and here are the guidelines, but I still want to get this part of the guidelines on the white lines. I'm not going to be looking at the end. It doesn't seem to work very well when you look at the end, but you can see when I turn to the left, that way, it goes to the left. If I turn the wheel to the right, this way, it goes to the right. And it gives you an idea of where you're about to go to help you get the lines where you want them to be. So no one coming, going back now. I'm going to try and get this part of the guidelines on the white lines again. If this is smaller than the white lines, which it is, I'll try and keep it in the middle of the white lines. So another look round, looks safe. Looks fairly even. This gap might be bigger though, we'll see. If I need to get closer to that way, I'll steer more that way and this gap will get smaller. If I feel like this gap's getting too big, I'll steer less and this gap will get smaller. Actually, I think I need to make this gap a bit smaller now, so I'll steer a bit more to the left. There we go. And now I think I'm in. The bendy lines can actually help me judge if I'm straight as well. I want the gaps either side to be as even as possible. You can see it's a little bit thinner on the right than it is to the left. So I'm going to just turn to the left a little bit to try and even things out a bit. And then there we go, it looks a bit better. And when the red line gets near the curb, I'll stop. And this is what it looks like on the outside. I don't think it's done too badly. Also, what's great about this Vauxhall Corsa, you get a 360-degree view here. So you can see exactly where your car is, and you can see the front is inside the white line. Although it's just faded now because I've been stopped here for a while. I'm now going to parallel park this Vauxhall Corsa behind that red car using the bendy guidelines. Again, I do it in the same way as I would in a car with rigid guidelines. The bendy lines just give you added help. They're not essential. So, automatic handbrake on this, don't need to worry about that. I'm going to pull up alongside this red car. There's no one coming. Quite close to the red car, but not so close that someone couldn't open the door and get out. But as close as I can whilst allowing that. Also, I want the backs of our cars to be aligned. We're roughly the same size. The red car's a bit bigger, but if I line up our wing mirrors, that's close enough. It doesn't need to be exact, about there. So select reverse, steer all the way towards the curb because I'm going that way. I'm going to add angle towards the curb. Have a look round, make sure it's safe, no one coming, and add some angle. No more than 45 degrees. Less will be easier, but will require a slightly bigger space. The more angle you have, the smaller the space you need, but once you go beyond 45 degrees, then you're snookered. So I'm going to go with about that much angle, straighten the wheel, and now come back at this angle towards the curb. The car behind is waiting for me. They can't get past, so they have to. So now I'm going to get this part of the line near the curb. But this time, I'm not going to touch the curb. I'm going to stop just before it touches the curb, because these guidelines are a little bit different, and all cars are a little bit different, but not drastically. And if I touch this line with the curb, I'll probably hit the curb. So I think that's probably good there. Now I'm going to steer away from the curb, and the bendy guidelines show me where I'm going to take the angle off. The car behind still waiting, so I'll come back now, taking the angle off. And the added help of the bendy guidelines is, as the car straightens, I can gradually unwind the wheel to keep the curve of this line in line with the curb. The car's gone past now, no one else coming, so gradually unwinding the wheel to straighten this line with the curb. And when the lines are straight with the curb, then I'm straight. Another car coming past me there, but I'm not affecting them, so no problem. And also I have the 360-degree view, which is extra help. So secure the car, and let's have a look outside. Again, don't think it did too badly, quite pleased with that. I'm now going to show you how far things actually look out the back window and outside of the car in relation to those lines on the camera screen. I'm going to use this camera to look out the back window. I'm off-road on private land at the moment, so I can hold that up whilst I do this. But it's worth bearing in mind that not all car cameras, car reversing cameras, are going to be the same, but they are similar. And some may even have more lines that extend further if they're along a vehicle, like a pickup truck. So at the moment, that's how far away the car behind looks. I'm going to get this line now to the car. So handbrake off, have a look around, look safe. Let's go back. So the furthest line is at the car. There. This is what it looks like out of the back window, and this is what it looks like outside of the car. Now I'm going to get the middle line to the car. There. This is out the back window, looks very close, almost looks like we're touching it. And this is outside of the car. And now for the red line. There, and this is out the back window, and this is outside of the car. If you're unfamiliar with a car, I don't recommend reversing all the way back to an object so that the line that's closest to the car on screen is touching the object behind. I recommend stopping a bit earlier than that to play it safe, because not all cars are going to be set up the same. All the cars I've driven with cameras so far, if I've got that line that's closest to the car to touch the object behind, I have had some space behind me. But I haven't driven all cars with cameras, so I can't say if that's the case with all of the cars. But also, there are some aftermarket systems out there, and they may not be set up very well. So play it safe, stop a bit early to begin with, get out and have a look and start to gauge how much space you have in relation to the lines on screen. I've now got a high, large vehicle behind. It's a lot higher up than the Corsa, and it has a big step that sticks out from the back so that you can step inside. That's what it looks like out the back already pretty close. Let's have a look at the camera. The camera is showing loads of room. So I'm going to go back towards it. Out the back window, once I got about this close, I would start feeling a little bit nervous. It looks like we're really close already. But on camera, you can see there's loads of room. So let's get closer. That's the first line. This is what it looks like outside the back window. And the second line, sensors are starting to beep. Looks very close out the back window. Let's take it to the red line. Ooh, I don't want to get any closer than that. That's out the back window, and this is what it looks like outside the car. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for car insurance, check out the links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car for practice, then Collingwood are there for you, because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy, which takes away a big stress from the owner of that car that you're using to learn to drive in. Via the link at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you want to insure your own car, I recommend checking out the link to confused.com. You fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back from many insurers to compare who's cheapest. And you can change your car on that quote as many times as you like without having to redo the whole quote form. That means you can compare how much it costs to insure different cars. Very useful when you're shopping around for cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.